If you're a heating and air conditioning technician or even a salesperson, what is the wandering objection process and why does it matter? This is a super important question. I'm Scott Sylvan Bell. I'm coming to you live from Haleiwa, Oahu on a perfect day to talk about sales and business and a perfect day to talk about you for HVAC technicians sales secrets. Here it is. You get to the end of your presentation. You've talked to Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, and you're having the conversation and they go, hey, Scott, I want to think about it. Okay. Traditional old school sales says, okay, you count to 1, you count to 2, you count to 3, and then you pounce on the buyer and you're like, so what is it you got to think about? Or whatever question that you ask, okay? Whatever way that you go and close a deal after an objection. And I want to introduce an idea to you that may make the sales process easier and may give you some better closing rates. So let's say that I'm meeting with you and your significant other, like you meet with me, and you say, hey, Scott, I got to think about it. And I go, hey, you know, that's cool. It's perfectly fine and normal. And then I change the topic, okay? We talk about surfboards. We talk about shave eyes. We talk about spam musubi. We talk about poke. I'm out here on Oahu, right? I'm thinking about all the good Hawaiian food. They got this place like in Wailua, which is the next town over, like 2 miles. And they got these things called snow puffies. Oh, snow puffies. Like, see, like that's, see how I changed the topic? Like, that wasn't a mistake. You're like, hey, Scott, what the hell was that? Wasn't a mistake, right? This is me using the wandering objection process. This is me changing the topic, right? Hey, Scott, I got to think about it. Perfectly fine and normal. Oh, man, I'm out here on the North Shore. Like, I'm changing the subject, okay? I'm going to pull all the stress. I'm going to pull everything off of the buyer. And then I'm going to start talking about something completely different, okay? And this right here is why you should join my email publication. I'll give you the goods. Not on the Facebook group, not on the YouTube channel. You're like, hey, Scott, why? Why? Why would I do this? This sounds absolutely bat crap crazy. This is insane. All right. Well, here's what happens is your buyer, the person that you're selling to, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, is expecting you to come back with the pounce, right? Well, got to think about it. Well, what exactly you need to think about, right? Well, here's what's going to happen. We're going to use the wandering. We're going to use the, I don't know what the sign language is for wandering, right? I can't remember. I know this is what, right? I took sign language 20 years ago. So like, my memory's not that perfect. We're going to do like the salmon swimming. We got the wandering objection process. And what we're going to do now is we're going to talk for a couple of minutes and we're going to go, hey, why don't we bring the conversation back around and talk about your product, your service, your widget, your gizmo? Why don't we slide right back into this conversation? Why don't we get back in here? And, you know, a lot of times what happens is when somebody goes through an objection process in sales, it's like they get the objection, they try to overcome it, they sit with the buyer, they're there for 2, 3, 4 minutes, and then they're out. But they just spent 90 minutes with them. And so sometimes it just takes time for people to be comfortable with you, right? Sometimes it just takes time for people to be comfortable with the decision. Does this process work every single time? I'm going to say no, it doesn't. But it's a different way for you to close a deal that's not the traditional sales process of, well, what is it you got to think about? What more can I give for you today? Sometimes you just need to slow things down just a little bit slower. So the person that you're meeting with can say, hey, like this is, I'm okay with making this decision. Sometimes people say, hey, Scott, why do you use priming in the sales process? Because you want people to be comfortable with the number. Why do you use like anchoring of price? Because you want people to be comfortable with the number. And so when you have these conversations with people and you use the wandering closing process, you're not necessarily talking about what's going on. So you start the sales process and you use some priming. Hey, I feel like I've done this 150 million times. Then you start, you know, 5 minutes later, you use some price conditioning. These are what our packages could be. Like our top one is all the way up here and it's got a really cool name. And I think the one down here is this much and it's got a really cool name too. And then you get to the end and people kind of like, oh yeah, we've talked about that, but we know we really got to think about it. Cool, no big deal. Hey, you know, I was just out on the North Shore walk and I was thinking like, there's a really cool place to get poke. I'm going to just change the topic. But you have to be good enough to bring it back like 5 or 6 minutes later, right? That's all you need. 5, 6 minutes and you're good. There you go. Wandering closing process. I would say this is like a mid-level closing technique that you could use. It does work. Right? And like, I'm waiting for it. Scott, that's not traditional sales, right? You should fight and close for the deal. I'm like, hey, For some people, that may not be the right personality, right? It's personality based. It's not one size fits all. And like, go ahead, right? Say it, go ahead. I want to hear it. I'm listening. I got you, right? Sometimes the best thing to do in sales is the thing that's the opposite of what everybody else does. You got one of 3 things to do from here, just one of 3. Find the subscribe button, click on it, and every time I send out a video, you'll get an update. 2, 2, hit follow. 3, share this video with a friend. Tag them, send it to them. They'll love you. I'll love you. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.